Hey friends, welcome back to the Neurospicy Mom Pod, the coziest little corner of the internet where we talk about healing, parenting, neurodivergence, trauma, and all the messy, magical ways our brains try to survive this world. I'm your host, Austin Marie, and today's episode is one that's been sitting on my heart for a while. It's one I didn't even know how to talk about until recently because it's so weirdly layered. We're talking about what it's like to grow up undiagnosed neurodivergent and how that creates this feeling of having two identities or like two versions of yourself living in the same body. And if you're late identified like myself, then you know what I mean. There's the version of you who survived childhood by raw dogging neurodivergence. And then there's the you who has language, finally, for what it's like as an adult. And somehow you're supposed to blend both of those people into one functional grown-up while also parenting, healing, working, masking, unmasking, and pretending that you're not spiraling about the fact that you only found out that you were autistic or ADHD in adulthood. Like, this is a lot for one nervous system. So today we're gonna dive into it. Let's start with the version of you who grew up undiagnosed, the version who didn't know there was another explanation for how it felt, the version who built an entire identity on misunderstanding your own nervous system. For me, that version of myself is still so vivid. She was overwhelmed all the time. She tried so hard. She thought she was lazy, dramatic, too sensitive, too emotional, too chaotic. She thought everyone else could handle life because they were just better, more disciplined, more responsible, more stable. And for decades, I remember telling my therapist the same exact thing. I feel like everyone else knows something about life that I don't. Like they got a manual that I never received. It always felt like I was missing an ingredient or a secret, like I was living life underwater while everyone else was breathing air. And the cracks really started to show after high school. I went from a tiny, structured school where routines were predictable and teachers knew you into this huge college, far from home, with no structure, no scaffolding, no safety net. And at the same time, I was also trying to process childhood abuse, but not really processing it, because instead of healing, I was numbing, drinking, partying, running from myself, drowning in shame about my behavior and choices. Looking back now, I can see so clearly this was my undiagnosed neurodivergent nervous system drowning in overstimulation, trauma, and zero support. And back then, it was framed as self-destruction, as irresponsibility, as immaturity, as not working hard enough and not applying myself. Every therapist blamed it all on the trauma, but it never went deeper. No one ever asked how my brain was wired, how my sensory system worked, whether my executive function was typical, why I was overwhelmed so easily, or why I shut down and spiraled, why I just couldn't do the things. My neurodivergence was invisible, even to the professionals I trusted. So my entire self-concept was built on shame, not accuracy. I truly believed something was fundamentally wrong with me. And that version of me, the girl who thought she was always the problem, she still lives inside me. She is the one who panics when things get overwhelming. She is the one who flinches at conflict. She's the one who masks automatically. She's the one who assumes that she is failing before she even begins. And I grieve her. I'm still grieving her because she wasn't broken. She was unsupported. She was misunderstood. She was neurodivergent and no one saw her. There is something so surreal about getting diagnosed or self-identifying in adulthood. It's like your whole life suddenly has subtitles. Everything snaps into place in this way that is both relieving and destabilizing. It's the moment where you go, oh, that was neurodivergence the whole time. That moment where you start rewriting your entire childhood, teenage years, early adulthood, and suddenly it all makes sense. You start realizing That wasn't a personality flaw. That wasn't me being lazy or dramatic or sensitive. I was sensory sensitive. That wasn't a lack of discipline. It was executive dysfunction. Those meltdowns weren't immaturity, they were overwhelm. That shutdown wasn't avoidance. It was my nervous system protecting me. It's like someone hands you the instruction manual to a machine you've already been operating for 20 or 30 years. And you're like, oh, wow, no wonder everything felt impossible. It is validating, yes, but it's also disorienting because it creates a second identity, your actual neurodivergent self that you now have to integrate with the person you built out of misunderstanding. This is where things get really tender. As someone who wasn't identified until adulthood, I've noticed this complicated layer of imposter syndrome show up for me. There are times when I sit down to create a podcast episode or talk about neurodivergence online, and this voice pops up in my head like, am I even allowed to talk about this? Do I count? Does my experience actually count? Am I taking up space that isn't mine? It's a strange internal conflict, feeling both seen for the first time and simultaneously feeling like an outsider. But here's what I'm learning. My neurodivergence didn't begin with a diagnosis. It didn't suddenly appear when someone gave it a name. It has been there my whole life. In my nervous system, in my reactions, in my overwhelm, in the way I process the world, and the way I love deeply and feel intensely. Diagnosis didn't create this part of me, it just finally translated it. And speaking from my own experience doesn't diminish anyone else's story. It simply honors my own path. I'm genuinely curious how this shows up for other late identified people, whether this resonates or whether your journey looks completely different. I love hearing how others make sense of their own stories. Once I realized I had lived most of my life as the misunderstood version of myself, I began the incredibly emotional process of rebuilding an identity that actually fits me. And honestly, rebuilding who I am has been messy in the most beautiful way. It has meant unlearning decades of self-blame and peeling back layers of internalized shame that were placed on me simply because nobody recognized what my nervous system needed. It's been about noticing my sensory world, honoring my emotional intensity instead of shaming it, and finally accepting that rest is not something I have to earn. A huge part of this rebuilding has happened through parenting my own kids. Learning my children, really learning them, has been like holding up a mirror to myself. When I stopped trying to fit them into neurotypical molds and instead began honoring their sensory needs, their emotional processing, and their unique triggers, I realized I was also accidentally learning how to work. By giving them compassion for the way their brains move through the world, I started to use that same compassion towards myself. The language I use with them, the gentleness, the understanding, the reframe, slowly became the language I needed to hear as well. And in this incredibly unexpected way, parenting my neurodivergent children has helped me reparent the parts of myself that never got the same softness. This process has required me to redefine what consistency means, what productivity means, and what being a good mom or being a stable adult looks like. Not based on what the world expects, but based on what actually aligns with my wiring. Some days it feels like I'm meeting myself for the first time. Other days, it feels like I'm grieving a version of myself who never got the chance to exist. But even when it's messy and nonlinear and emotional, this rebuilding is the closest I've ever been to living in my truth instead of surviving inside my shame. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to say something gently to anyone who also grew up undiagnosed or misunderstood. You were not wrong for struggling. You were not dramatic or lazy or too much. You were a neurodivergent human trying to survive without the tools, language, or support you deserved. You adapted in the only ways you knew how, and those adaptations kept you alive. They kept you functioning. They kept you moving forward even when life felt impossibly heavy. And now, for the first time, you get to meet yourself with softness. You get to understand your wiring instead of judging it. You get to rebuild yourself from a place of compassion instead of shame. You get to reclaim the parts of you that were never the problem to begin with. And I am so deeply proud of you for being here, listening, healing, and trying, because even tuning in to conversations like this is an act of self-recognition. Before we go, I would love to do a grounding practice with you, something to help your nervous system settle as we close this emotional circle. Wherever you are, just take a moment to look around the room. Slowly let your eyes land on 5 objects that feel safe or neutral. There's no rush. Just notice their colors, their shapes, the way they sit in the space around you. Then take a slow inhale and an even slower exhale. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breath soften and give your body permission to know, I am here, I am safe, I am allowed to exist exactly as I am. And you are. You always have been, and you always will be. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, or if you're on your own journey of rediscovering who you really are underneath years of masking and misunderstanding, I would love to have you join us inside the NeuroSpicy Squad on Patreon. That's where our cozy little community lives, the message boards, the video versions of the episodes, the off-script updates, the journal library, and honestly, all the magic. And a quick little tip, if you do decide to join, please make sure you sign up on your desktop or your laptop. Apple will add a fee if you subscribe through the app on your phone, and I never want you paying more than you need to. So hop on over to your browser, go to patreon.com/the NeuroSpicy Mom Pod. Your support is what keeps this sparkly corner of the internet alive, and it truly means the world to this neurodivergent single mama. Every week, I'm reminded that healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, in reflection, and in moments like this where we let ourselves be seen a little bit more clearly. This week, I want you to sit down with this question. What's one part of you that makes so much more sense in hindsight now that you understand your neurodivergence? And how can you offer that younger version of yourself the compassion they never received? Let this be gentle, let it be honest, let it be whatever your brain needs it to be. A sentence, a paragraph, a drawing, a voice note, a messy reflection. There's no right way to do this. There's only the way that feels true for you. And with that, I'll see you next week, friends. Take care of your nervous system, take care of your heart, and keep becoming who you were always meant to be. Until next time, ta-ta!